So, hello, friends. Right, I can see some of you have started joining. Thank you very much. This is our first guest show of the year, and I'm delighted to be with you. Very soon, I'll introduce you to the guest, but let's see as people start joining in. Uh, it usually takes a minute or two, so I'll let people join in. Uh, so, firstly, thank you. Thank you. Many of you have registered in time and joined us. So I can see Soma joining. Yes, Soma, welcome. Keswani sir, thank you for joining. Hopefully the session will be interesting for you. Quite a few people joining, as is usually the case, So let's get cracking. So once again, hello friends. As you join, greetings. If we haven't spoken or if we haven't met this year till now or spoken to each other, very happy New Year. I believe that all of January we can keep wishing each other happy New Year. So thank you very much for being here. I'm of course Anshuman Tiwari, and this is my podcast and YouTube channel by the name Manage Better. All right. Some of you are regulars, so you would know the theme. But those who are new, let me give a quick introduction to the concept. I believe that irrespective of where we land in life, we can get better by managing with what we have. Right. It's you will never have what you want, what you need. It is always about managing with what we have in life, in at work, in any sphere that you want. Right. And we have no control on where we land, right? But we do control, or we can control where we go, and that's all about this channel or this series of podcasts that I'm trying to do. And so each episode, last year particularly, I brought to you several speakers who relate very well to the theme of Manage Better, and enlarge and the concept of the quality innovation, getting things done, and these kind of things, right? This so this series of episodes therefore focuses on how do we get better from where we are, right? And of course, for those of you who want regular subscription or some kind of alerts, please subscribe to my channel on YouTube. And those of you who are the video type or audio type, you can subscribe to my podcast as well on Apple, Google, Spotify, and now Stitcher as well. And of course, this recording of this is usually posted on LinkedIn and YouTube immediately, and now on the Facebook channel as well. So most all these channels are either by my name or Manage Better. So it should be easy to find. If you have any difficulty, let me know. Okay. Um, we see quite a few people joining in on YouTube as well. So hi Sahil, yes, of course. So moving on with the topic. So today's topic is innovation, and I definitely wanted to keep it innovation about doing innovation rather than talking innovation. So I have a guest today who truly believes in this, that innovation is more about getting things done, doing it rather than talking about it. And I have always thought that innovation remains a topic that is much talked about but very less done about. And today's topic is about this kind of thing. So, without much ado, I introduce my guest for today. I'll bring him in a few seconds, but let me give a quick introduction, and I will bring him in as I speak. I bring to you Ravi Arora. Ravi is Vice President at Tata Sons and is responsible for the innovation program for all of Tata Group companies. Right. So that's please take a moment to digest this. He's in charge of innovation programs across Tata Group, and of course, Tata Group is famous for several innovations over the years. He has, I'll bring him in a second. Yes, hi Ravi. So I introduce you further, he has conceptualized and implemented many innovation programs to support the Tata Group. These programs include, and we will talk about some of them: Tata InnoMeter, InnoVista, InnoVerse, Ideas, challenges worth solving, and many other similar programs. And results of these programs are often, coming out as products or services of the group companies of the Tata Group. Some of these programs have been shared at Harvard and other leading business schools as well, and several leading conferences across the globe. Before working or taking up this role, Ravi started his career at Tata Steel and started in the maintenance function like many people at Tata Steel do. And Tata Steel, of course, I keep saying it is the foundry of management talent in India. And many a management leader has come out from Tata Steel. So here is one more. And he later, of course, led the knowledge management program for Tata Steel, which also was recognized by the Make Awards. Those of you who are not familiar, Make Award is most admired knowledge enterprise awards, or the most knowledge enterprise awards given out by APQC, and very popular for amongst the knowledge management groups. Ravi is a BE from IIT Roorkee and a PGPX from XLRI, and has authored several papers, blogs, and most importantly, what is important for today is that he's also the author of two best-selling books, Making Innovation Happen and Igniting Innovation. Both are based on his journey and lessons learned at the Tata Group. So, as you can see, Ravi is an authority on innovation and is the right person to speak to us today. So, without much ado, we have Ravi with us. Ravi, any opening comments before we get going into the questions that some of the speakers have shared with us?
Thank you, Anshuman. Hoping that you're able to hear me.
All good.
Thank you for this opportunity, Anshuman. I can only say that not many people, while working, are able to start an initiative like this, which is useful to many people. In fact, I will now that I know of about this Manage Better program, I will also try and listen to other experts as well. So I would say that the minimum that you are doing is creating a network of people and trying to bring the practitioner's view, hopefully, on various subjects for the benefit of people. And what a great time to start this when people are locked up at home. So my I would say a big I really appreciate for what you are trying to do over and above your day job. So I wanted to start with acknowledging and also thanking you for doing this job for all our colleagues, and
Thanks,
special
Ravi.
thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, Ravi. Always generous and kind that you are. And so let's get into the questions. So what I did, Ravi, is that I actually invited some regular attendees to share some questions. And of course, I had some questions that I've always wanted to ask you, and you are very difficult to catch otherwise. So this was a good opportunity, right? So innovation is, let's start with something like, innovation is many things to many people, right? So everybody has a definition. Everybody likes to have a definition. You've been at the heart of this at the Tata Group for many years now. What is your definition of innovation?
So I will start by saying that this is a very interesting question, and in fact, I personally believe that the definition of innovation is the responsibility of the organization. So it's the companies who need to define what innovation is meant to them, and of course, what it means to their employees, and most importantly, what it means to their investors. I don't think customers need to know the definition of innovation that is being used by a company, be it a Tata company or a non-Tata company. Customers are very smart. They know that they have to buy the best product or the best service. So they are not bothered by the reputation or by the definition. Reputation, yes, but the definition of innovation. Now, if you were to look at the classical basic, why do companies exist? So companies are normally, all companies are in a race of creating a better product or a service. That's one, which they want to create or deliver with a process that ensures lowest cost. So that's the second one. Third is they want to sell it to the most number of customers, making maximizing their profit. So these are the three inputs to increase the maximize their profits. So the company, depending upon their industry, their market, they choose their own definition depending upon these three levers: the product lever, the cost lever, or the market lever, or the sales lever. And it priority also keeps changing. So it dominantly, as I said, it leaves to the it is best for the company to decide. But if I were to define it in a very simple vanilla manner, it is anything new that adds value, as simple as that. But this is insufficient for any company to adopt. So the company needs to identify the three levers and then expand and maybe identify thresholds on the product side or the process side or the market side and create a definition which helps the company to achieve its strategy, number one. Number two, align people around that strategy, which we sometimes call it as an innovation strategy.
Hmm.
Now let us look at three examples that I picked up. Apple. Apple's definition, informally, which what I have picked up is making people's lives better with smart and intuitive products. So it's a product-centric approach. Let's take 3M. I picked up the three innovative companies. The use or application of creativity to generate a new or novel output having value for customers. See, again, the output is nothing but a product for 3M, novel output. And the
Correct.
third is Microsoft. The conversion of knowledge and ideas, it is a generic thing, into new or improved products, processes, or services to gain a competitive advantage. So, all three companies here are focusing on the first lever, which is products.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's a unique way to look at innovation, and I've often felt that innovation is also about and Ravi, you might agree with this, that getting it done as well. So there are many an idea which comes, and creativity gives us those ideas, but companies actually fail in delivering. And there are the organizational history is full of such examples where something is invented at one place but actually innovated at another place. And I clearly see the difference, because invention is just about maybe the scientific part of it, but the innovation is taking it to the market part of it. So you very clearly brought out that, and glad that you brought in the product thing, because that's my second area that I wanted to explore. And it's usually the product innovation gets more limelight. If we took a poll of all the participants on this video, or even people who saw this later, probably the companies that you mentioned will always feature on those companies, those lists, right? So, and I did notice, and that you've been very very um, kind in not mentioning any Tata Group companies, but there are several Tata Group companies also which could make that list, right? But generally, product innovation definitely gets more limelight. But what we also see is that processes also need innovation from time to time, but there is a line which is not very clear between innovation and improvement in the process industry. So often innovation is would be called improvement, and I'm from the school where as long as it is benefiting the customer, it doesn't matter what you call it. It should be okay. For example, I have admired Disney for this for a long time, and their service is their product. I mean, many people would think their theme park is the product, but actually the service is their product. What are your views on this, and anything on and around process innovation that you want to share with our viewers and listeners?
Interesting, very interesting. Thank you for that. I think what you said is absolutely right. That the product innovation do get the most limelight, and fortunately or unfortunately, and if you look at India and Indian companies, they are very good at process innovations. So why product innovations? Because obviously, as you said, they are visible to the customers, and those products help solve a particular problem of the customer. Now, more interestingly, in the last maybe 2 decades, the role of products in creating a better perception about the company on innovation is increasing. Why? I believe this is more because more and more products are fulfilling the social and the psychological needs of the customer, unlike the earlier products which were 2 decades before, or maybe more than 2 decades. They were dominantly targeting the functional needs of the people. So when a product touches the core of the psychology and the social fabric of the person or the community, it definitely gets more limelight. So that's one. The
Hmm.
second reason why I feel product innovation takes the limelight. Now I'm dividing my answer into two parts. The physical products, they take the limelight because a look-alike product is very difficult for the others to bring because they are very protected. Patent is one of them. There are many other ways to protect them. But physical products are much easy to protect, and they enjoy the limelight if it is a fantastic product for a longer time. On the other side, the digital products. And digital products are easier to copy, but the early mover
Hmm.
advantage is very daunting for others to copy, although they are copyable, but it's very daunting task because the early mover himself or herself makes losses for quite a few years in these days, in these years, before the profit starts coming in. So when the early mover who has a market of 20 million customers or maybe more is making losses, it's very daunting for others to come. So they also get the limelight, therefore. Now, let me come to pure service innovations. Now, pure service innovations, in sometimes they are attractive definitely, but they are easy to copy if they are not backed up either by a strong digital play or if they are pure human related services. So they definitely are seen as incremental, improvement, so to speak, or incremental innovation. Now, let me come to your example of Disney. There are some services which are backed up by a strong and a very, uh, shall I say, capital intensive infrastructure. Disney is one of them. Hotel chains are the second example. SpaceX rocket is the third example. It is not only the infrastructure, but technology and technologically advanced assets, so to speak. They are backed up with those assets, so to speak, but they're providing a service. So these are also get the limelight because again, because of two reasons: one, because of patent protection; number two, because it is a very, very capital intensive and very difficult to copy. The third type of service is where a company uses multiple processes and they are so intertwined and they are so complex. For example, airlines, such a complex process, multiple skill sets are required, and it is very difficult to copy. And if the company comes out with a stream of innovation on a regular pace, it takes against the limelight. So, since you're
Hmm.
more around limelight, I am trying to focus on the limelight part. So, net, I would say depends upon the industry. Service industry, most of these products that we see today, so for example, Twitter or a Facebook or Instagram, they're one company, one product. Unlike the older days when one company used to have a basket of 10, 20 products, maybe automotive or whatever, you can take any other example. So one company, one
Hmm.
product. It's more of a platform. Now, when it comes to a platform, the definition is no more an innovation product. It's a portfolio of products. So on the same platform, say Amazon or anybody else, they would be working on hundreds such small innovations. Some of them will be, some of them will fail, and some of them may not, may be very successful. But the definition is a platform of small incremental innovation on a larger innovation, which is a platform innovation. Quickly coming to the last part of your question on process innovation. Now, if you look at India, if you look at the IT services, which is India is the hub, uh, we are thriving on process innovations, I would say. Now, gradually moving into product innovation because that's a typical route. You typically move from process innovations to product innovations. Now, these type of innovations, which are process innovations, they don't get the limelight. You know why? One big reason that I feel is that there is no way for to capture the value of process innovations. Have you heard of any ERP, let's say SAP or Oracle, which gives you at the end of the year in your P&L statement as to how much is the value of the process innovation? No, unfortunately, no.
Hmm.
The same ERP will definitely give you in a P&L for a product. For A product, B product, C product, D, it will beautifully lay out the whole impact of the product innovation. But it is not true for process innovation. So, in absence of such news that the companies can't publish, which is auditable, provided by an ERP system, I think we missed that limelight. But I think that's okay. And if you look at the most profitable companies globally, and if you look at the most innovative companies globally, pick up top 10 and 20 companies, top 20, which I've done this analysis, the overlap is hardly two or three companies in both. So my question to
Hmm.
you back is, do you think the most profitable companies in the world are not innovating? Impossible. They are innovating. Unfortunately, they don't get the limelight because most of them are not into, they're not called as innovative companies. They are more into, say, oil and banks and stuff like that. They are innovating, but they don't get the limelight because of the reasons that I just mentioned.
Yeah, fair point. I think, Ravi, I liked your description of the process innovation and why it might be missing the limelight. And frankly, it shouldn't matter to the company as long as it is serving the customers and bringing in the money. So very fair point. And the this is neither new or strange. It has been around for as many years as we have been around, and it's also something sometimes to do with B2C and B2B. B2C companies tend to get a little bit more attention because of their even minor innovations. Like I keep giving this example that in the phone that we normally, you ask anybody today, most people will name a phone company as the most innovative company around. But actually, the innovation is in the ability to package data and transfer over a optical line, or a continent to continent. That is the innovation. Making the phone which works using that innovation is of course innovation, but it is nowhere compared to the scale and size of the other innovation. But it this one is about B2B and B2C. So fair point. Moving on, I think we've already started getting some questions. So friends, we will be taking questions towards the end. I will, of course, scan some of your questions, and as is always the case, our guest will not be able to answer all questions live. So request you to connect with him on LinkedIn or write to him, or when I post this video, immediately after that, if you post, tagging Ravi, uh, he will be able to respond to your questions. So keep the questions coming, but please don't feel bad if we can't answer your questions live, right? There are some pre-recorded, I would say, submitted questions. So the next one, systematic innovation is often a challenge for companies, and we have seen so many examples of companies getting one thing right, one product, one service, one bumper product, and then they fail to follow up with a series of innovations, or sometimes even disappear, right? So any views on this? Why does this happen? Why does it happen so often? So if people would know, this shouldn't happen this often, right? So
Yeah, actually, when I completed my answer for to the previous question, and Anshuman, you brought a good point of B2B and B2C. And if I were to just take 30 seconds and then jump into
sure,
this
sure.
question is, B2B also find it very difficult to get the limelight. I'm coming back to the limelight question. It's very difficult because B2B innovations, since they have to be consumed by another business and they have a further process to, and in many cases, at least for physical products, the consuming company in B2B, they need to make a lot of changes and they have a lot of, shall I say, antibodies within their own system to reject any changes. Nobody likes changes. So therefore, these companies really struggle, and they need to have far more collaborative approach for their innovation, and therefore they definitely fall short of getting limelight. And again, this is happening more in the last 2 decades because more and more of B2C digital platforms are taking the limelight away. But as you said rightly, it's profit. Ultimately, what matters is revenue and profitable revenue. So coming to this, what you asked just now, I think I somehow feel that it is correct and it is reality that it is not possible. It is impossible to come out innovation after innovation without failing. And if we feel that there is a company which comes out with innovation regularly, what we don't know is that between two innovations, there may be hundreds and maybe a few hundred, if not thousands, of failures, which they have not talked about.
Mm.
Because nobody talks about failures and nobody talks about internally itself. I've seen, now this is an informal study which we have done within a few companies, that people obviously don't like failure because managers are not supposed to fail. Simple, full stop. Managers are not supposed to fail. So that's why they're hired for, and therefore and the first thing that they're taught is how not to fail, and therefore the subject of risk and de-risk takes a lot of prominence. So they're not supposed to fail. Simple. And if they failed, it should not be shared because the manager also don't want it to be shared. Now, but failure is something which is inevitable. Now remember your days, my days, and people who are on the call. Who is a person who has never fallen while learning a bicycle? Everybody falls. Who is the person who has never fallen while learning skating? Everybody falls. And not that parents love seeing their children falling, but only thing is that they don't discourage when the child falls because they know that the route to the success of learning how to ride
It's
or
through this.
or how to skate is through a failure. But when they fall, they don't call it failure. They call he's learning or she's learning. So unfortunately, so we don't use failure in our personal lives so easily. We only, and sometimes people have broken bones. Even still, we don't call that failure. If somebody, a child breaks his or her bones, we don't call that he or she failed. We still say he or she is learning, and he or she will ultimately learn. We do call it a failure only when the child or a person gives up something to learn. So we call it a failure to learn. We don't say failed. We say he has failed in learning.
Hmm.
So there's a difference in personal life. But the same person, when he or she joins a corporate or an organization, the things change. The question is, who is a parent? Parenting is nothing. Parenting in our corporate setup is done by a manager, by my supervisor. But somehow we don't behave in a very similar manner. So the point that I'm trying to make is that the way parents provide the safety net, and they don't discourage when the child falls or falters when trying to learn something, the managers also need to do something very similar. If they when they see that their employees have failed or is not able to achieve something which was decided mutually that it will be achieved, we will try and achieve it. So that's, I think, we fail, and sometimes we don't, and that's where we normally say that in a very, shall I say, informal language, we say that we don't have a culture of innovation. In some sense, we are saying that we don't have a culture where if somebody is not able to achieve a particular innovation project, uh, there is no mechanism to pick up the person, handhold the person, ask him or her, don't worry, keep moving.
Yeah.
So that's
No, I
that's
think
my.
that's an awesome point of view, and but but that begs a question, so Tata Group has been really good with this. How have you, and you've been pretty much in, at the center of these kind of innovations. So how do you handle failures in the Tata Group from an innovation point of view, and provide the safety net to people? So a few words on that, maybe.
Yeah, so we have, what we did is, we just thought, so somehow we believe that the culture is nothing but a process followed for years and months together. So when you follow a process for months and years together, it becomes a culture. So if you want to have a culture of innovation in which the most elementary item is to not penalize people for failures. So what we did was we created an award in the Tata Group, and we call it Dare to Try Award. Some of you may have heard about it. So this award is given, and there are hundreds and hundreds of teams now which participate. It started quite a few years ago with only 6 teams who came forward. Either they came forward themselves, or maybe their managers allowed them to go forward. So either ways you can think about it. Both are right answers. So, but they came forward. But now today, as we speak, there are teams which run into maybe close to 1,000 teams which participate, and so we have an award. We basically see four things in this: how exemplary was the intent, mutual intent. It cannot be an employee's own personal intent. It has to be an intent which is mutually agreed between the organization and the employee. How exemplary was that? The second thing we check is how exemplary was the effort that was put in to achieve that innovation. The third is we check is, or we not we check in the sense we encourage people to talk about is how exemplary was the exit from that, which means how was the failure acknowledged, how was it accepted, how timely was it declared, and so on and so forth. And the fourth thing that we encourage to see in the whole process is how exemplary was the reaction, how much was the new type of learnings that we got, and what was the reaction of the team which quote unquote failed, and what was the reaction of the management or the managers when the team said that they have failed. Now it is
Hmm.
now we it's very easy. We have checked the records, we have done a lot of research. There have been a few cases where a few companies did start this program of awarding, recognizing intelligent failure, so to speak, but not able to not in, have not been able to sustain for maybe 2 or 3 years time, and we have been running this for last 10 years. And uh, and and in the process, what do you think we are trying to do in this process? I believe personally that innovators are like mavericks. They are like people who want to climb Mount Everest. Some of you might have attempted that in the past. I have a few friends who have climbed Mount Everest. They want to climb, they are like mavericks. But every such person needs a Sherpa. And without Sherpas, it's very difficult to do a climb or a summit. So, if you were to draw a parallel, an innovator needs a Sherpa. And we believe that Sherpa is nothing but the manager and the manager's manager. Depending upon how big is the innovation, we need to involve more people in the hierarchy who should think like a Sherpa. And if you do Google, which I have done, and see how Sherpas are defined, very three critical attributes. Number one, they are very, very valuable for the climbers. They give guides. They are the guides for the climbers. That's number one. Number two, they are responsible for the safety of the climbers. So, in other words, they are responsible for the safety of the innovators. Right? I'm trying to
Hmm.
draw. The
Yeah.
third, they are self-sacrificing. They are tenacious best friends. So imagine, draw a parallel to the innovators. Imagine the manager self-sacrificing, ensuring the safety of the innovator, best friend of the innovator. What more you need? And these are the few things that we are trying to encourage, trying to create more Sherpas, not only innovators, but trying to create more Sherpas through this Dare to Try award. And if you were to ask me as to what is the change that I see from a distance, from 10 years, 10, 14 years ago, if you go around and do a survey, many people would say, show me who has done it, and we will do it. And I think many people in the Tata Group today will say that, tell me a wicked problem, and we will go for it. So that's the transition that is happening, that has happened to some extent, to a large extent, I would say. And I think such processes like Dare to Try award do play a very important role. And I would say we are very gungo about it, and we are going to continue. And we do invest a lot of research into it. The professor from INSEAD Business School and Singapore Management University, they have studied this award for 3 years, or maybe 5 years of data. Sorry, I'm so sorry, 7 years of data, longitudinal studies. And they have established with the help of data that people who participate in Dare to Try award, they have a 36% higher probability of of being successful in their innovations in future. So I just wanted to thought I'll just conclude by giving you a data point, because most of us always look for data when we talk about a theory or a practice.
No, no. Coming from you, Ravi, we will not look for data. We will take your word. But I think to my listeners and viewers, this is almost an inside scoop on how Tata Group manages innovations, and there is no mystery around this. I have personally seen this program grow from one or two editions long back, like Ravi pointed out, and today it is almost a cultural thing. So, like Ravi earlier also said, culture is something that you keep doing, the processes and the behaviors that you keep repeating over the years. It doesn't happen overnight, and this is a very unique thing. So some of you who may want to try it or something, connect with Ravi over LinkedIn, or on this page when it comes up, and see what you can learn from this. He's given you some of the key concepts, and hopefully this will help you try your own Dare to Try format, and we both will wish you luck with that, and can support in any way we can. But moving on, Ravi, not every company, of course, is Tata Group, right? So let's be also fair. Tata Group is one of the largest groups around the world, not only in India, with the resources that are not limitless, but are significant, right? So obviously, what you as Tata Group can do around innovation is has some advantages, right? What would be your advice to other smaller entities to start their innovation journey? Anything that you may want to share with them?
Very difficult question, and I would start by saying I am not necessarily agree to that point of view. As you rightly said, resources are always limited. Always limited. You take up the richest person in the world whom we all know, trying to figure out how to one of the richest persons in the world trying to figure out how to ramp up the manufacturing. So resources are always limited. It's all about priority. So I think what we struggle honestly is when we look at a brilliant idea, and we all, especially innovators, they sometimes, most of the innovators, I'm not saying all, many innovators, not most, many innovators somehow get distracted by what they feel is a better idea. And there'll always be a better idea, let me tell you honestly. There is
Mhm.
always a time in the world when you will find a better ideas. So therefore, it is very important to say no to something which is seemingly a good idea. Now that's very important point. And I think, and there, because everybody has limited resources. So ultimately, if I were to summarize it in a few words, a few sentences, the game is all about managing resources and trying to juggle the false positives and the false negatives. If you are trying to start innovation, obviously nobody would like to start something which will turn out to be a false positive. Nobody knows if it's going to turn out to be false positive. But I think I mentioned in the previous question that the company or the individual, if you're a startup or you're a company, if you have a process to identify false positives, which is nothing but a failure, early enough, and that needs a culture, because as I said, people try to hide the failures and try to prolong the hiding process for quite some time, especially, I mean, informally. I mean, especially maybe if it's around the year or at the end of the year, they would definitely not like to talk about it, because nobody wants to be seen as a failure at the end of the year. So there are many reasons why people don't share false positives. But if you were to have a good process of trying to figure out false positive and also identify false negatives, now that's also very equally important,
Yeah.
because false negative happen because you're not able to either spot a good idea or you're not able to put a resource on the idea, and therefore it's very important to keep an eye on false negatives, which means something else has started which you have rejected. And you have to have a process of starting late and trying to convince your people that we need to fast catch up. Now, fast catch up is also a culture. And I somehow believe that innovation and fast catch up, they have, these two cultures are very, very close cultures. Only innovation without fast catch up will never work in a company. And these are very difficult cultures to set up, and both needs a process, supporting process to be set up. So I don't have a good example as to how in our Tata Group right now as to how we are promoting the culture of fast catch up. We are doing some bit of a work, but yes, the answer is that resources are limited, and it's all about uh,
Fast catch up.
balancing false positives and false negatives.
Oh, I think very, very well said. And coming from you, it has a lot of weight, Ravi, because you know, and this is always a some kind of a dilemma that you need a lot of resources to get into innovation. You primarily need a mindset, and like you earlier also said that are you willing to be the parent who will allow your child to fall 2, 3, 5, 10 times before he or she picks up the nuances of riding a bicycle? Are you willing to be that parent? And that doesn't need too much resources. Ultimately, when the child is falling each time, there's only an incremental cost that you are bearing. If we compare it to the organizational setup, it's not a whole capex that you are bearing. So and if you draw parallel to running, or any other sport also, most marathoners quit in the last mile. Uh, so it's a 26-mile run or 42-kilometer run, but most people quit in the last mile, not the first, not the mid. It's only toward the end or the last quarter or 10%. So very well said. I think that brings our kind of talk to a slight conclusion. One maybe last question, or maybe one we'll take a couple from the audience as well. Um, what would be your advice to Indian companies on the path of innovation? I know that we just answered part of this question, but any specific advice that you would want to give to Indian companies, because most of the Tata Group companies, although work globally, but are primarily Indian as well. So there is a connect.
So not really. I don't think I'm someone who can. I can only say that what is going in my mind, in our minds when we are talking to companies. I think we while the startup ecosystem is improving in India quite in leaps and bounds, but I somehow believe that there are a lot of B2B startups in India
Hmm.
as compared to maybe other places. I've not done that study, but my hunch says that. And obviously, my suggestion, or my, at least what I'm trying to think about within the Tata Group, is that if we need to figure out a way, and B2B needs collaboration, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So now I feel that the collaboration between a startup and a corporate is like a three-legged race.
Hmm.
Only thing, and it will remain like a three-legged race. I have no doubt about it. It will remain. But the only thing is, let us not try and make it a three-legged race between a 35-year-old adult who's an expert vis-a-vis and alongside a child of 5 years old. That makes things complex, and both sides suffer. So the startups are not able to find use cases. They are not able to get the markets. They are not able to get the companies whom they get partner with, and on the same side, corporates perhaps miss the opportunity of a new technology, homegrown technology, making made in India technology. So I think that's my only suggestion, and to myself, I would say. I'm not saying on to all the people who are there on the call, but yeah, that is something which is bothering me personally as to how we can make this collaboration between startups and corporates and create an example for the rest of the world. So I would stop here.
Yeah. No, I think very sage-like advice, Ravi, because I've also believed often that it's your journey, right? And manage better is also about it is your journey. It doesn't matter where you land in life. Yeah, all of us land at different points in our life, but as long as we keep getting better every day, every week, every year, it's fine. And the same holds true for companies as well. As long as companies, of course, companies slightly complex because there is competition as well, but then individuals also have competition in some ways, right? So uh, the companies which keep getting better every year invariably will land in your list of the top 20 that you earlier mentioned, right, over a period of time. So yeah, so with that, let me quickly check. There are quite a few questions, Ravi. You seem to be the most popular guest that we've had, but I will request a lot of the people who were asking, at least on LinkedIn, to ask the question when this video gets posted, which will be immediately after this session. So on the page, on my LinkedIn page. So Goda Verma, you have, as expected, several questions, but I will request you to ask Ravi directly. I'll go to Uday Sanghani. He's a partner with KPMG and he's an expert in automation. And his question is, Ravi, uh, first of all, thanking you for your wonderful examples. But how will you differentiate between innovation, business transformation, and disruption? Or are these too many terms trying to achieve the same goal and confusing people? So I'll repeat: innovation, business transformation, and disruption.
Yeah, so innovation and disruption, perhaps, I mean, the way I see it, there is a word called disruptive innovation. We know that breakthrough innovation, disruptive innovation, we know these words. So they are closely related. Now, transformation may or may not involve innovation. It depends what is the as is state of the company which is trying to transform. A company can transform a lot just by emulating others, because perhaps they have a uh, uh, maybe a below par product portfolio, or they have a below par technology, or they have a below par factory, or they have a below par HR practices. It could be anything. Just bringing that below par to par itself can be a transformation. So innovation is more of a ingredient what goes into the transformation, is what I would say. So I won't say they are closely related. As I always say, I always believe that improvements are all about KPIs, or business transformation is all about KPIs. And innovation may not be about KPIs always. Innovation is all about inspiring stories. So if you are running on a street or a jogging, it's all about KPI. How many kilometers, how many steps, how many calories. If you're climbing a Mount Everest, it's not about calories. It's only about the story of climbing the Everest. So transformation depends upon what has gone into the transformation, innovation or not the innovation.
Yeah, I think so, guys. If you notice that there was a slight disruption, I ended up getting moving out of the session, but apologies for that. A few more
Oh,
questions.
sorry. Okay. So do you want me to repeat, or I
No,
will?
no, no problem. You were
Okay.
there.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
My connection was a little disrupted. Um, there are questions around, cost. I think Ashish Jha has asked a question. But much of that you've answered, which is around cost and this in conundrum. So we'll move on from there. Ayon Mukherjee on YouTube has asked a question: what are your views on time consumed in the innovation process? People generally give up in the long run, which we briefly spoke about that. Like in sport as well, people give up towards the end. So any views on that?
Yeah, that's where the Sherpas come. That's where the Sherpas come, and the giving up happens only because perhaps either the Sherpas moved on or the new manager has come in. Innovators normally don't give up, and also innovation has a life cycle, and the same person is not the best person across the innovation life cycle, from idea to maybe a concept, to a proto, to a pilot, to a commercialization, to a scale up. You need a different skill sets completely. So there are high chances that Sherpa, which means the management, has not
Yeah.
paid attention much of trying to augment the team with the appropriate skill sets which are required in this journey, and therefore people feel tired because they are not the right person to continue on that idea to innovation journey. So I think otherwise I don't see any reason. And second reason, if I were to give, is that again I somehow am trying to blame ERP system here today. Looks like I would get a problem with that, but I think the ERP system today don't treat innovation projects as inventories. The
Hmm.
moment innovation projects are treated as formal inventories in the P&L financial accounting system, I think many of these problems will get sorted out. We don't treat. After all, if you are doing a multi-year project and if the project is 35% done at the end of the year, of course it's an inventory,
Yeah.
but IP inventory. But for the physical inventories, there is an elaborate system of audit and reporting. But for innovation project, which is nothing but an inventory, and there are resources pumped into it, maybe 5 months, or sorry, 500 man months or 1,000 man months, depending on the size of the company. It unfortunately does not get reported into the inventory. So I would say innovation inventory, if ERPs of the world can bring out, it will solve a lot of this problem.
Now, well said. I think some years ago, of course, and it still continues. There was a very welcome change that companies started including IP or IP related inventory or their intellectual capital into their statements. But I think that is also kind of a little bit on the wane.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
there for some time, but not so much.
yeah.
So uh, quite a few comments as well. Most of them thanking you. Some have most have loved your Sherpa. I think that will be the dare to fail and Sherpa are the two comments. I think people are
Dare
dare
to
to
try.
try, and Sherpa one are the two most commonly repeated ones, Ravi. So I think you made an impact with those comments. So thank you very much. Well, with that, we will try and wrap up the session. Of course, there was the this American Society for Quality South Asia head Anindya Sarangi also had a question. Unfortunately, he's not on the stream yet, but let me point that question if that makes sense to answer now. India has been known as the IT hub for a while now. What can it do quickly to become a innovation hub?
So yeah, I saw that question on LinkedIn. Yeah. So uh, no, I don't. Obviously, I'm not an expert there, and obviously, Niti Aayog and others will definitely have a much good answer. But I can share my views on this. The only view I can say that there is nothing called quickly. It will take time. But the only thing I personally feel in the last few years, the things that are happening are absolutely in the right direction. To name a few, recently, Make in India, which I think, believe me, it will be a game changer for me. I mean, I feel it's a great program. The startups and the hackathon program that Government of India and others are trying to encourage. Tinkering labs, trying to include playfulness while children are at school and at colleges, was a big problem. And tinkering labs is one small step. I guess more and more private players might join these tinkering labs as a next step. I guess so. And more and more colleges being opened up across every state, maybe in many places, and good colleges are being opened up. Industry academia collaboration, I see a lot of discussion happening with the ICT guys talking about it. So industry academia collaboration, especially postgraduate, I think is again a right step, right a step in the right direction, I would say. Then I think, I guess, when the experience the future is all about experience economy, and I somehow believe that the experience economy has a very strong component of the trust. So in other words, I call it a trust economy. And I think India has because of its generations of that we have, history that we have. I think India is very well poised to leverage this experience and the trust economy with its own products and services. It's a matter of just a short time that I think we might be known as the innovation hub for the experience and the which is based on the trust economy. And the last thing that I liked about what is being discussed and people are measuring and monitoring is ease of doing business.
Correct.
And ease of doing business is again absolutely a step in the right direction.
Right.
Of course, a lot of things are happening. Some things are being talked about, not happening, but many things are happening. So I would say these are the building blocks which are required to make an innovation hub, a country as an innovation hub. And as I said earlier, product. When you said innovation hub, we are already an innovation hub, but we are the innovation hub for process, which is not giving us the limelight, which was the starting point today. So what
Yes.
get the limelight, we need to go to the product innovation. And I also mentioned that the way to product innovation is through the process innovation. So I think we are very, very strong in process innovation. And these few things that Government of India is doing is a fantastic route or a gateway to get into the top of the iceberg, which is the product innovation and to be known as the innovation hub across the world.
Cool. So thanks, Ravi. I think I am still seeing some questions coming in, but I'm mindful of your time, so I let you go. Like I said earlier, friends, if you still have questions for Ravi, or some of your questions, I did mention some names who had asked the questions, but I could not complete it in the time given. Please ask it on the post when it comes up, or contact Ravi. He's quite active on LinkedIn and should be able to give you an answer. So, with that, I would like to bring this session to an end. Thank you, Ravi, very much on behalf of all listeners on all the platforms, three platforms: Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Fantastic session. As you know, the thanks are, as you can see, still keep
Yeah.
coming in. So, with that, on behalf of all the people, yeah, sure,
And
you have
thank you,
something.
Anshuman. And thank you, Anshuman. May you be given a lot of strength, and maybe you get a lot of strength through the community and your personal strength. Please keep doing this work. And thank you very much for hosting me.
No, no, my pleasure totally. And you're kind and generous as always. To our listeners and viewers, if you like the content, if you want more such things coming, please show your encouragement by subscribing to the channels on YouTube, Buzzsprout, and all popular podcast channels or players. Till then, keep managing better. Thank you very much.
Thank you.